Hey there, hey there, hey there. It's me, Paul Dyer, up here in Bangor, Maine, the great North Woods, and we're going to have a little Tax What If boot camp today. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and especially on this election day. So appreciate your time, and we hope to teach you something that's useful and basically have you join our party, which is learning how to sell from a tax return. Using tax returns in your day-to-day financial planning can add a humongous depth to your practice. So better closing ratio, better marketing. It's a skill that many of you on the call probably have, and maybe I can tell you something today that would show you how we can take you to the next level. And then there's people on the call that probably don't have rudimentary skills. And you know, those skills just aren't that hard to learn. So as long as you got the right tutor, mentor, teacher, somebody that appreciates your skill set now and wants to advance you, then I think you can accomplish this. And that's what our company is all about. United Cloud Partner Services has 3 different products. We offer Tax Prep Back Office, and we offer Map Cloud, and we offer CPA Tax Bank. And the mission of Tax Prep Back Office is to teach advisors how to do tax marketing, how to see opportunity in a tax return, just generally how to be better at that whole end of the business, which hugely helps on the marketing side, definitely helps on the closing ratio side. So I'm not going to be a walking commercial today, but I just wanted you to know who's giving you this information today and why do we do what we do. This is what we do day in, day out. Now, I do want to start by saying this, that is, we try to make this as interactive as possible. And so we do use the question function in GoToWebinar. I already have a question pending from Janice. She's asking, can we get copies of the slides today? And the answer is yes, you can get copies of the slides by sending us an email, which I will give you at the end of the program today. So you betcha. But how you'll communicate with us, don't use the chat, use the question function, post anything that you want to ask or have to say, and we'll read that throughout the event today. And if they're important to cover right away, we will. If there's something that can wait till the end because it's a slide that I'm going to cover, we'll defer, but we'll definitely get to all the Q&A at the end of today. So use that question function. And with all that being said, you know, the real reason that we do what we do is to try to make every financial advisor more accountable. So I'm going to go to my messy desktop because I got 4 or 5 presentations really that I want to share today. But what we aim to do with our membership, people that are part of our group, we have these Tax What If boot camps every other week, every Friday at noon, every other week. And that Tax What If boot camp, we just put up tax return after tax return after tax return and say, here's what we see on that return for a sale opportunity. And then working with our CPAs in the cloud, working with our team, identify for you what the sale opportunities are. So in this particular case, here's a tax return where we did the examination and we said you could kind of go either way with this tax return. You could take IRA off the return and work on getting them into a lower bracket. In other words, in this case, they could have an IRA in line 32 and change that $89,000 you're seeing on the return down to what, 77,000 or 76,000, and lower their tax bill. So people like to see a lower tax bill. Change this $14,000 this couple owes to maybe 11, and that's a big shazam, right? But there's also another way to go. You could actually put IRA withdrawal on the return and bump the bracket. So it's not always, you know, save people money on taxes. With this case, these people have a pension that's going to be coming in no matter what. They have an RMD that's going to be coming in no matter what. They're stuck in a permanent tax bracket. So it isn't always show people to pay less in tax, sometimes it's show them that they should be paying more and bumping the bracket and paying more on purpose. So we do these boot camps all the time. So today what we wanted to do is just kind of share the skill set that leads up to really being a good tax ninja, right? Now I'm going to start with some rudimentary stuff, but I don't want to alienate the people that have been doing tax planning on the call. So what I want to do is show you at the end of this call, we're going to be sharing with everybody a corporate tax what-if process that we have. And as far as I know, we're the only company in the United States right now that has what we call an automatic corporate tax harvesting program that illustrates for you, for your business owners, what they should be doing with tax planning. So you can literally upload to our company in a secure cloud a copy of a tax return from a business, not know anything about corporate taxes or know very little, and you're going to get back an automatic tax what-if that outlines 20 different things that that business owner could do to tweak their outcome. So I'm going to share this process with you, but I'm going to save it to the end of today. So if you are not a novice, then the things that I'm about to do for the entry-level folks on the call is not your cup of tea. You already been there, done that. Go get a cup of coffee, answer a couple of emails, come back in about 15 minutes, and stay with us, because we're going to get into something that's very advanced, and I think you're going to be thrilled to know that there's a company out there that's doing corporate tax what-if work the way we are. But I don't want to start there. I want to start for people that are new to the concept, but we're going to go over, this is a 20-question questionnaire. You fill out this questionnaire and upload a tax return for a corporation, and we're going to give you a master tax plan that will blow your mind without you knowing what you're asking for. We can help. So just know that we're going to be doing that at the end of today. So, but what is this all about? Selling from a tax return. What do we teach here in our company? It's all about making sure you understand that as you look at a tax return, you can learn how to do very quick backwards math and make some verbal assumptions that will really move your prospects and suspects a lot closer to being closable. So let me expand this, and I'm going to have to share a screen reversal. So let's see, I need to do that, and then this, there we go. So what this is all about is understanding that as you look at a tax return, each line has got a little gold nugget, and if you learn to toss out statements about their tax return, not only can you figure out what assets that you might be after, but you can also figure out what assets might you be able to get away from their current advisors or banks and so on. Because everybody either loves an asset or hates the asset, but they're almost never neutral. And so you can learn to look at a tax return from a tax planning perspective very quickly. So we'll just start with the good old line 8A, right? You can do quick backwards math on a line 8A. So if there's $1,000 on line 8A on a tax return, when somebody hands it to you, the chances are there's $100,000 in a bank or a money market account or a brokerage account earning 1%. So you can just simply add zeros. Now we're in that environment where 1% interest rate is the average. If we were in a 4% interest rate, you'd have to learn to do a different form of backwards math. But it's the point that you can, right? I look at 8A, I know what the current interest rate environment is, and I can ascertain how much that client has in cash with pretty good accuracy most of the time, just by understanding the formula. And the formula couldn't be any simpler than the 1% environment we've been in for a while. So you look at a tax return and someone's got $1,000, then you'd say, wow, they've got $100,000 in cash, cash equivalents, money market accounts, liquid dollars. Chances are, there's always a chance that you could be wrong. It could be mortgage interest or things. We can go to a schedule on the tax return and determine whether we're right in our immediate guesstimation. But it's just developing this skill set, right? I'm looking at a tax return, somebody's just sharing it with me for the first time. I can look at that tax return and I can know how much non-qualified money they have, how much money they have in IRAs, I don't really have to ask them a lot of questions. I can look at a tax return and know this person's got $782,000 in investable assets. And I can ascertain all of that in 30 seconds or less, right? So that's the skill we're going to talk about for the next 10, 15 minutes. So you look at line 8A, you do quick backwards math. So if they had $10,000 in line 8A, they've got $1 million in cash or cash equivalents, right? Same idea with 8B. 8B is tax-exempt interest, right? Well, so you can do quick backwards math and ascertain what they have there. Say they had $10,000 in interest on line 8B. Then the average municipal bond right now is paying between 2.5% and 4%, but let's just say 3%. And so you can say, okay, what's the backwards math? If they've got $10,000 in this line, they must have somewhere around $300,000 in that particular kind of account, right? So you can always ascertain from backwards math by knowing just what's the current interest rate, what's the current bond rate, corporate, what's the current bond rate, municipal, what's the current dividend rate, right? So we're going to talk about these as we go, but here's more importantly, you start to learn how to drop little statements as you look at somebody's tax return. You start to learn to drop these little statements, and those statements can help you with what asset am I going to be able to move once I'm given the opportunity to look at someone's tax return. So you wouldn't just say, you've got an awful lot of cash here, $10,000, wow, that's $1 million that you have in cash in money market accounts and banks. You can learn to ask an emotional question, and it's always about the emotion, not about the function. Emotional question. Well, what would an emotional question be if you looked and saw somebody had $10,000 in line 8A on their tax return? They got $1 million in cash. Who has that? Did you just sell something? Did you just capitalize a stock? Did you just sell a business? Or are you not in the markets at all? Although if you're looking at their tax return, you can look down at line 9A and you already know the answer to that, right? So you can ask a question that leads them to an emotional answer, right? So you can ask function, did you just sell something, or did you just inherit something? Why this much in cash? But you can also say, well, how do you feel about what the bank is paying you on this amount of money, right? Because some people will actually say, well, that's what banks are paying across the country, and I feel it's fine. But other people are going to say, oh, no, they're paying me nothing. I want to earn more, right? So you learn to just identify what the number is, throw it out at the client, throw it out at the prospect, and say, you've got about X by doing the 1% formula, and then ask them, why do you have that? Did you just inherit it? Did you just sell something? Why do you have what you have in the bank? And then ask them how they feel about the interest rate that they're being paid. Do you think it's fair or unfair? By doing that, boom, 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 and learning how to do this line by line on a tax return, I see the number. Hey, you've got about this much. Is that right? They're immediately looking at you like, how do you know what I got in the bank? Why do you in cash and money market accounts? And then why do you have that? Did you just sell something? Did you always keep this much cash on hand, etc.? And then how do you feel about what you're being paid? You'll find they'll identify for you problems in the assets that they hold. They'll actually say, yeah, no, it's fair. Okay, I'm not going to go after the money in the bank right away. There's another asset here they like less. I'm going to go after something else. So you can go through a tax return in an extremely rapid fashion and figure out all of these different things. Now, I don't want to go too far too fast, so I'm going to minimize the screen, and I'm going to end this show. We'll go back to it in a second. I got to just rearrange things here on my desktop, but I want to go back to putting that in real perspective on a tax return, right? So I look at this tax return, which needs to be probably bigger for you. Let's move it up to, there we go, right? I've just met them, and they're saying, yeah, you can take a look at my tax return. I'm going to make that immediate backwards math amount. All right, there's $15. So what do? You add a couple of zeros to it. So do they have a ton of money in cash in the bank? No, right? But you can ask an emotional question about it. Hey, I see here you've only got $15 in interest earned. Do you keep no emergency fund in non-qualified assets? Do you use a home equity line of credit instead? Where do you keep your emergency money, because it's obviously not here in the bank, right? So that's a question based in emotion, and then they're going to say where they keep their emergency fund. Chances are they're going to say, don't have an emergency fund because I have enough money in IRA or something of that nature, but they may not. You know, they'll surprise you. So you always want to look at the tax return, ask the emotional question, and then get the response. Do you think it's fair? What they're paying you is fair, right? So 8B, we'll move on faster. You got the idea. First, what's the interest rate? You state the amount of money. Now, here's something that you can learn to do very quickly on a corporate tax return, and that is, on a personal tax return, and that is the corporate rate in municipals is usually about a 25% spread. What do I mean? I mean, if muni bonds are paying 3, then corporates are paying 4. If muni bonds are paying 4, corporates are paying 5.5. Generally speaking, these are all rules of thumb, but they're reasonable rules of thumb. If they've got money in line 8B, which is a tax-exempt bond, they can generally get 25% more yield out of the equivalent corporate bond, right? So why is that important? Well, let's go back to a tax return so that make sure that you've really got this comprehension, right? So if they had money right here in line 8B, the first thing I'd do is I'd look at their tax bracket. Now, how do I know right away what tax bracket somebody has, right? Well, there's a quick and easy way to do that, even if there's no cover page that says they're paying 12.391, you know? And that is just take line 22 and take a peek at line 22, because that's their total income, and then look at the second page and look at line 6061 where the total tax due is. So here's somebody that's earning $90,000 in income, $89,560, 90 is close enough, right? And they're paying $14,161 in tax. So that's about 16, 17, 18% in tax rate. So if they owned a municipal bond, it would be appropriate because they're avoiding tax. They're in the 25% bracket at that point. They're avoiding tax, and the lower municipal helps them avoid the tax. But if that same client had $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in line 22, and you looked at their second line and they were only paying $3,000 or $4,000 in tax, they'd be maybe at the 8% bracket or the 7% bracket. And if somebody's in less than the 15% tax bracket, generally speaking, they'd be better off not owning a municipal bond. They'd be better off owning the corporate bond. And yes, paying more tax, but if I'm earning 25% more and I'm paying 15% to the IRS and I have 10% left over profit, even after I pay the tax. So when I look at somebody's tax return, I'm looking at line 8A, I'm making the statement, this is about how much you have in cash equivalents. I'm asking them why they have that, and I'm asking them how they feel about the interest rate they're being paid. Doing the same thing with a tax-exempt interest, only at first I'm looking at their tax rate. I'm looking at they above 15% or below. And if they're below 15, I'm saying, why, when your current advisor told you to sell your municipal bonds and buy corporates instead, why did you say no? Right? It's the phraseology that puts the money in motion. It's knowing what to do, but it's knowing how to ask that's so much more important. So I'm going to ask them, say, well, geez, it looks like you're in the 10% rate here. And so if you could earn 25% more on a corporate, pay the tax, you'd still have more money left over. I'm sure your current financial advisor has told you many times, it's time to sell these municipal bonds and buy corporate equivalents, and you must have said no. So is it like a hospital bond and your husband died in the hospital and you just want to support the hospital? Or is it a, something special to your heart? Are those bonds something you just don't want to let go of? Because I'm sure you were given the advice that you should have changed the status, right? It totally disarms a lot of folks to understand that although they've got tax-free municipal bonds in their portfolio, that because they're in the less than 25% effective tax yield, that they shouldn't, right? So you've got to learn to do the quick examination. Line 8B, is there a number? Line 22, that's the income. Line 61, that's the tax paid. Quick math between line 22, what they earned, and line 61, what they paid. Is that more or less than 15%? If it's less, I can make this statement about the munis maybe not being appropriate any longer. If it's more, then they are appropriate. Then I can just move on to the next question, which is, how do you feel about what the munis are paying you? Right? So it's learning to actually, this, I've been going on here for 10 minutes, but it's learning that you can do this, boom, 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 boom. Line 8A, backwards math, make the statement, make the next statement. Line 8B, backwards math, look at the tax rate statement, ask the question. Line 9A, going through a tax return, 8A, 8B, 9A, can be just that fast. So somebody hands you a tax return, you look at it for 60 seconds, you're doing some quick calculations in your head, you're looking up at them, you're saying really intelligent stuff, you're asking them questions about why they own what they own. You'll find that that skill set is invaluable in your closing ratios, invaluable. Once you learn to become a tax ninja and really comprehend the skill of look, make an out-loud observation, say it out loud, they look at you, they respond, and then ask emotional question, boom, boom, boom. You'll immediately identify, going through a tax return, the assets that they do not like, right? So line 9, dividends. As a general, again, a general rule, I know there are dividend stocks that pay 6, 8, 10. I know there's growth stocks that pay none. But the average dividend-paying stock is about 2. So when you look at money in line 9, you can immediately just, again, do the quick backwards math and see, okay, they've got $41,000 of dividend. Well, if it was a 1% dividend, then it would be $410,000 in that line, and I would get 1%. So it's a 2% dividend. So they've got $2 million, roughly, $1,700,000, $1,800,000, right? So it's just learning to do the quick backwards math and having those formulas in your head, right? So what are the formulas is part of your takeaways from this call today, and we appreciate you giving us this time to show you what we do day in and day out at our corporation, helping people learn this skill set. So we've got videos and manuals and training camps and boot camps, and Rome wasn't built in a day. You're not going to absorb this skill set just for hearing it the first time, but it's important to understand the skill set is easy to obtain, not that difficult, and something that within 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we can help you master, right? So 1% is the current in line 8A, 3% is the current in 8B, 2% is the current in 9A, and just practice a couple of times doing the quick backwards math. But again, then you've got to learn after you've stated the amount of money, and what you're trying to do is give them a ballpark understanding that you know more than you think, that you know more than they think you would about them just by seeing the return. So they show you the return and go, wow, that's a nice non-qualified account. What is that, about $1.7 million or so? They just showed you the return. You just met them. You're just looking. They had no money in line 8A, no money in line by 9B. They had $41,000 in line 9A. You look at it and you go, what is that, $1.6 million, $2 million? And they're going to go, yeah, something like, yeah, around that. You know, they're wondering, like, how do you know what I have in my non-qualified account? Because that rule of thumb will work. It'll be in a range that's acceptable. They'll connect. And then you've got to learn immediately, now it's time to ask the emotional question. What's the emotional question that goes with that? Well, let me ask you this. Do you pick what you own in your portfolios, or does somebody else make a recommendation to you and you don't pick what you own in your portfolio? Do you love what you own, or do you just own what you own? That's a really powerful question. If you learn to ask that every time you see money in line 9A, stop the presses. Hey, you've got about this in that non-qualified account? Yeah. You know, generally a little bit. They might say, oh no, I've only got 800,000. We have a heavily dividend-paying portfolio. Okay. They might say, no, I've got 3. Then we've got 1% dividend payers, or no dividend payers, some growth stocks with a few dividends in there. But they'll say something back. It doesn't matter if you were to the penny or not, but the follow-up question, that emotional question, is so key. So let me ask you this. Do you actually pick what you own in your portfolio, or does somebody else pick these stocks for you? Do you love what you own, or do you just own what you own? Because you're going to find a lot of people go, oh, I don't even know what I own, quite frankly. Bingo. You've started to put a wedge in between the advisor that's about to lose the account to you and you. Because you're saying, well, if you don't understand what you own, then how do you know whether they're right or wrong when they make trade recommendations? Right? So you're already down a very good path by learning to ask those kinds of questions. So what I want you to take away from this segment is just that this is a skill. You learn to do it, and it reflects back to knowing backwards math and then always having your emotional question poised. And you're going to ask the same questions of every person you meet. So in 10 practices or 10 prospects or suspects, you should be ninja at this. But you got to commit to the process, and believe me, it will serve you well. So line 12 on a tax return immediately tells you if they have a Scheduled C business, right? Line 13 on a tax return tells you whether they've bought or sold something recently, capital gain, capital loss. Or it might tell you whether they have a mutual fund that's reported a capital gain or a loss without them taking any action at all. And again, it's all about the emotional question, right? So you look at line 12 and you see a number and you go, oh, what's the nature of your business, right? You already know they have a business. If there's a number in line 12, they have a business. And you just met them. They just handed you the return. They haven't told you anything about themselves, but they've shared a copy of the return for you to look at. And so you've looked at line 8A and made a backwards math comment, and they didn't have any money in line 8B, and they didn't have any money in line 9A, but they had $1 in line 12, and go, oh, tell me about your business. Boom, 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 right? And then you see negative 3,000 in line 13. What do you know? You know there's probably even bigger losses than what is showing on the tax return, because minus 3,000 is a carry forward. It's the most you can take in a year that isn't against gains. So that means that there's more bad news on their Schedule D, and we can show you where to go get that information. That's one of my favorites. You know, I'll see minus 3,000 on a tax return, and I'll go to their Schedule D and I'll look, and you'll see all sorts of numbers: minus 15,000, minus 50,000, minus 150,000. You see all sorts of negative numbers. So what do you know? They've capitalized losses. They've taken a loss. I always look at the client or suspect, say the exact same thing. I say, so let me ask you this. Do you pay a professional to lose money for you, or do you do that yourself? The look that you get on somebody's face when you call them on that topic is wonderful because it is pain. And you don't always have to be nice with people. If you're going to be somebody's financial advisor, if you're going to improve their situation, you can't candy coat everything that they've done, right? Being a yes man will not get you anywhere near as many accounts as being somebody that's purely just objective and honest and says and asks the tough questions and works through the tough answers, right? So you look at somebody and say, so do you day trade and lose that money yourself and shouldn't be, or do you pay a professional and he's losing money for you? What's the status of how that happens? Because it's bringing a couple of things emotionally home. My current advisor has lost money in my portfolio, and he might have made millions of dollars in gains, and that's immaterial, right? But you want to make a statement, they know, you know, and give them a chance to internalize that. And then more importantly, if they're day trading or doing it themselves, they're realizing it's time to probably fire themselves, right? And nobody should be their own stockbroker if they're not a licensed financial advisor. So you can work down through a tax return and immediately know, I don't have to be afraid of this thing. I can learn the lines and know what it means. And that's so valuable as a financial advisor. Learn the line, know what it means, ask an emotional question. So you see here, there's capital gains, there's IRA distributions on line 15. Everybody knows that one. Pension income on line 16. Line 17 can be real estate or corporations. Line 20 can be Social Security, right? And then you can start working on the offsets. Line 28 to 32 are they making IRA or retirement plan contributions? If they own their own business, do they have a SEP or a KEO, right? So I'm going to go back to a tax return and start thinking about how fast it can happen and how good it can be when you're first meeting somebody for the first time, right? Oh, so I see here you've only got a few dollars really in savings. Where do you keep your emergency fund, you know, for emergency expenses? Do you have, you know, a home equity line of credit open or a HELOC open or a reverse mortgage account? Or so how do you handle your emergencies? Be quiet. Right? What's going to come out of that? Well, we really don't have one, but we've got a lot of money in IRAs. We'd simply withdraw money from IRAs if we needed it. Okay, that's a form of emergency fund. Now I'm looking down the return. I know they don't have a business. They don't have a non-qualified account. They didn't take a capital gain or loss. So now I'm line 15. So is that $55,180? Is that an RMD? Now, an RMD is the amount the IRS forces you to take out every year, or you have to pay a penalty. Or is that a needs withdrawal? Is that money that you needed to take out to live the way you want to live, right? So I have the emotional question that I know I'm going to ask to every line of this tax return. The number questions are the setup questions. The emotional questions are what puts you in that person's psyche and into the success lane very heavily. So you just got to plan. Oh man, what did you went to that tax audit boot camp today? Yeah, what did I learn? Well, I learned that this seems complicated, but he says it's not. And I learned that what I need to do is have a backwards math calculator in my head and know how to do backwards math off line 8A, 8B, 9A, 9B, and that I need to have an emotional question preloaded in my head. So if I see a number in a line, I'm going to ask the same question no matter who I'm in front of. Line 12, tell me about your business. It's an open-ended, non-yes or no question that people like to brag about their business. And it gets you further into their psyche. And you can look at the business and say, oh, I see you have a business, yeah. And you paid quite a bit of tax last year, yeah. And you don't have a SEP or a KEO or any kind of qualified account because you know line 28 is self-employed, simple plans, and there's zero here. So if they had money there and they don't have money there, it's an emotional setup. Tell me about your business. Line da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I see you paid quite a bit of tax. Yeah, oh, yeah, too much. You know, what does everybody say about their tax bill, right? but you didn't do a SEP or a qualified plan or a KEO or an IRA, you could have paid a lot less in tax, right? Boom, boom, boom. So that's the skill set we teach, and it's not that difficult. Again, how many lines are here? Line 7 to line 22. So how much backwards math do you have to learn how to do? Don't have to learn it for line 7. So 8A, 8B, 9A, 9B, line 13, line 15. That's it. That's all the backwards math. Can you memorize 6 numbers and learn to do quick backwards math on 6 columns every time you see a return? Boom, boom, boom. Yes. And then I got to learn how many emotional questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18. I got to learn 18 questions that I'm going to ask like a robot every single time I see a number in a box. Oh, they had money in line 7. What's the question? Tell me about your job. Do you like working there, or are you just working there? Emotional. Tell me about why you're keeping this little money in the bank. Tell me why you're keeping this much money in the bank. Da-da-da-da. Emotional. Do you like what you own, or do you just own what you own? Tell me about your business. Do you pay a professional to lose that money for you, or do you lose it on your own day trading? Boom, 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 right? So that's the skill set of learning to sell from a tax return. Now I'm going to go on to another return or two here and just show you how to apply the skill differently each and every time that you see a different scenario. So this is a little exercise that we go through here. Let's pull up a new one, right? All right, so what do I know? They don't have a job. They don't have a significant amount of money in any bank account or non-qualified account. They overpaid their state taxes last year by $1,300. They've got a $32,000 pension, and they've got Social Security. So what can I ask for emotional questions about these numbers? Well, this is a single individual on the return. So what we teach with a single individual is that you don't have to worry about asking any questions. You go right to box 15 and you look to see, do they have IRA? And if they're single and they don't have IRA, you want to find out if they are going to be getting any IRA distribution. So let me ask you this question. You're single or filing single. Were you married or widowed or divorced, or have you always been single? The question you ask, and it's a setup question. And then line 15, do you have any IRA, 401k, 403b, pre-tax money anywhere? Because if they do, this person can have unlimited income and not pay any taxes at all by implementing forms of charitable planning. I can make your tax bill 0 for the rest of your life, give you all the income you need, right? If they're married, we don't go there because they are going to want to take care of their spouse. So you have an automatic mental question for any kind of return that comes in that you learn to ask line by line through a tax return. Let's grab another one just for the sake of some change to it. That's the same return. This is all part of a tax what if boot camp. To get down to a new person. There's a new one. All right. There's somebody with just a pension, no questions to ask. There's somebody with a pension and an IRA. Quick backwards math on an IRA, 1/25. This times 1/25 is the amount of money that's likely in that IRA account. Quick backwards math. I want to get it down to one that's loaded. There we go. So again, $104 in 8B minus $2,000 on the tax return. Should not own a municipal bond. Not in the 25% tax bracket, in the 0% bracket. No reason in the world for them to have a tax-free account. minus $3,000 on the tax return. Chances are losing more money than just the $3,000. So you go to the schedule to look at that tax return and ask those questions, right? So it's all about not being afraid of this thing. The tax return is your friend, and it gives you the ability to ask very intuitive questions and get a lot of information out of people. But you've got to have a methodology approach where you ask and it immediately elicits a response. So you've got to practice the backwards math and the question you're going to ask no matter what. So here's finally a return in the set that's loaded, right? So what do I see? Married couple. I immediately go to line 7 and say, so you guys are earning a pretty good living. Tell me about your jobs. You like them? I want to get that emotional information going, right? Now I'm looking at their bank account. How much money do they have in cash or cash equivalents? Somewhere around 18 grand. So I'm going to say, is this $17,000, $18,000 your emergency fund, or is it earmarked for something else? Right? And they tell me, and then I'll say, you know, so what is that, about 1% that the bank is paying you, or the credit union, or whoever it is? And they'll say whatever the rate is. It won't be great. You say, how do you feel about them giving you so little interest on your money in the bank? I just want to hear what the emotion. They'll either say, well, that's what everyone pays, or we hate it, but we don't think we have any other alternatives. It is our emergency fund. What's a better emergency fund for the right couple than money in a bank? How about a home equity line of credit, where they keep all their money invested, and if they have an emergency, they can borrow it at a tax-deductible 3. Would that be appropriate? Sometimes, right? The question is, ask the question because it gets the communication with the client open. It gets that conversation moving down the tracks. What's their approximate non-qualified account? Around 100 grand. They've got about a 2% dividend rule, and they've got 2186. So there's about $100,000 in non-qualified accounts. So what am I going to say to them? After I finish about the bank, I'm going to say, so you got about $100,000 in non-qualified accounts. Let me ask you a question. Do you pick the stocks that you own in your portfolio, or do you just own the stocks that you own in your portfolio? I mean, do you know what you own and like it, or do you just own what you own and you're taking the advice of somebody else? Hear what they have to say, right? Oh, now I see you've got a business. Tell me about your business. How do I know they have a business? Business income, right? And then what else do I know about them? Well, I'm going to go down and take a quick peek at line 28. No money in a SEP, or a simple, or a KEO. So they're paying tax on $264,000. And they probably said to themselves, oh, well, you know, we couldn't do an IRA because we earned too much. Right. But with $32,000 in the business, you could do a SEP. They can't stop you from doing that. And you could have lowered your tax bill substantially. Right? $3,000. So do you day trade that yourself and lose money yourself, or are you paying a stockbroker to lose your money for you? Opens up that scab. I mean, it's a tough conversation, but it's a conversation professionals are not going to have a problem asking, right? So the point of this whole learning to plan from a tax return, self from a tax return, is that you have to learn what is the backwards math, what is the statement I'm going to make, what is the emotional question that I'm going to ask about each and every one of these lines. I need to know what the line is. I need to know what the emotional question connected to the line is. Yours might be different than mine, but it's a game plan. It's laying out a tax return and writing out, handwritten in your own hand, what your emotional question is going to be. And it's practicing that so that when a client does slide a return in front of you, it's a reaction to do what you're training yourself to do and not a struggle. People that learn to do this report their closing ratio is in the 80 percentile. These are people, you become a tax ninja, that don't ever lose a sale. When you're put in a competitive situation, you win. And it's because you've learned to put the math and the emotion together and to know enough about this little tax return so that you can make forward statements to a client and come across as a true alpha. So that's the skill set that we teach and that you can learn, and it's not that difficult. We do boot camps every other week for years and years now, and we'd love to have you be part of our team and learn how to do this skill for yourself and have resources to do it. But as promised, I want to dive into this corporate return what-if process, because I don't believe, although there are a lot of different tax mentors out there teaching how to read a tax return, how to look at a 1040, there's 1040 overlays, there's all sorts of different people that educate you in the way I'm trying to today, talking about tax planning and learning how to take control of this. I'm not hearing anybody outside of our company talking about a corporate tax what-if process, right? So here's what we want to share. When people do a 1040, and let me expand this. When people do a 1040, right, you learn to remove line 8A or 8B or 9A, illustrate saving money on taxes. You learn line 13 to not take unanswered capital gains. You can learn these skills on a 1040. But when you see a corporate return, how do you know what to do, right? You can't just immediately do the same things you do with a 1040 that you do with a corporate return. So we've come up with a process where we've used good accounting practices, and there were a lot of little tweaks that people often don't realize they can make that own corporations. So let me give you an example. A lot of people that own corporations don't know they can hire their own kids and hire their own kids the right way, and they pay no FICA and FUTA on those children, and the kids themselves pay no FICA and FUTA in receiving it. So that whole tax, the whole 17.5% gets completely skipped. If somebody's got 3 kids and they own a corporation, that's like almost 20 grand that they can pass off their corporate tax return to their personal return, and from their personal return to their kids. And they've saved payroll taxes, Medicare taxes, and corporate tax, K-1 tax that's going to be passed to them personally. And they just don't know. So what we do is we do an analysis based on a questionnaire, and then we automatically send you back all the adjustments and a ledger showing all the adjustments that could be made. Now, in this particular tax return, there's $1.4 million in cash flow. They're paying themselves. They have employees. At the end of the year, they paid themselves a $29,000 K-1 that went to their personal return, and they paid tax on that. They also paid FICA and FUTA tax. They put it into our corporate what-if process, and in the next day, got back a report saying that your positive $29,000 K-1 should have been a negative $8,000 that you carried to your personal tax return. So it's just understanding that if you don't know what you're doing with a corporation, instead of having to learn that whole skill set, our company has an automatic process, and it comes from CPAs. It's not a program. It isn't Trust Me Math. Our CPAs actually go into the return software. They repeat the corporate return in their own software till they have it match, and then they apply 20 accounting principles to that return live and come back with written recommendations for that business owner to talk to their existing accountant, their existing CPA. Our CPAs will actually talk to their CPAs and say, I found 11 ledger adjustments that you could talk about making and possibly save some tax. And they're sharing CPA to CPA. The CPA's in our cloud to the CPA business owner's accountant. And that can help you unbelievably in these sales situations. So I want to equate this to a regular business owner versus a corporate business owner, right? So we looked at this return, and this is this couple. They have a $32,000 business, right? Now this is not a corporation. This is on their own personal tax return. And so they're paying $50,000 in tax. We looked at this couple. They've got W-2 income of $232,000. They've got $32,000 of business profit they're reporting on their line 12. They didn't take a SEP or a qualified plan deduction. They paid the IRS $49,000 in tax. So once you learn the business what-if process, we went and looked at that Schedule C, and this is a very common situation. The schedule business is a consulting business on the side of their employment. They had $40,000 of gross revenue. They took very few car expenses, a little bit of depreciation, $300 in legal, but they basically reported all of this income as profit on their personal tax return. But if you remember right, they had 3 kids, 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 people that, as long as they're really over the age of 7, it can be done younger because they can sign modeling contracts, and of course they're signing as the parent and as the receiver. But right here in wages, line 26, wages, it's 0. So we could illustrate for this client very easily just, this is one concept, right? What if we just had the same tax return, but we hired your kids? It drops that $12,000, I mean that line 12, $34,000 down to $17,000. And it drops the tax to $43,000. One simple accounting principle, this isn't buying an IRA from you, it isn't investing money, it's changing their view of accounting principles, how they write checks and why they write checks. It's legal and ethical. They go from $32,000 and paying $49,000 to $17,000 and paying $42,000. Tell me that you won't get their 401k at work and their SEPs and their KEOs and their life insurance and their DI by just educating them a little teeny bit about what they could do in accounting that's legal and ethical and save themselves $7 grand before they even put money in an IRA with you or in a SEP, right? What kind of a hero do you become? So again, we don't expect you to learn this process. It's just a next level skill set. If you're ready, we'll teach you. But more importantly, our what-if process for corporations is automatic. All you do if you're a member of our cloud, scan the tax return, upload it to the system, answer our questionnaire, and then you submit that to us. Our CPAs automatically go in and apply general accounting principles to the answers to the questions they gave you and apply formulas that are acceptable by the AICPA and show adjustments that can be made. Now, once you're doing that at a low business level, we're doing a lot of what-ifs for showing people how to set up cash balance plans, do captive insurance companies, premium financing. I see discs, capital exchange trusts. We're teaching people how to show business owners how to save millions, and that's a whole different skill set. And we've got a great crew in here if you need help with those kinds of things as well. But today was about the basics. We want to tell you about what our company is and does. So if you join United Cloud Partner Services, the first thing we're going to do is evaluate where you're at in understanding a 1040, and we're going to put you on an educational regimen of helping you figure out how to be that tax ninja. I see the line, I do the backwards math, I ask the emotional question, I move money because I'm awesome. And then once you get that skill set under your belt, it can take 3 months, 6 months, just depends on how much time you want to give to us. We have videos, we have training manuals, we have bi-monthly boot camps, bi-weekly. Every other week I have an hour boot camp live online. But that's what we do out there in the public. And then if you're ready, we'll take you on to the business planning side of tax marketing and show you how to do the basics, hire your kids, 105 plans, the stuff that helps the client save money, frees up dollars for 401ks, for life insurance, for buy-sell agreements. But then if you're ready, we'll take you eventually to the big leagues, teach you how to do those 7-figure commission type programs like premium finance and captive insurance companies. It's all happening out there in the market. It's just, do you have a resource that can teach you what you need to know and how to move from A to Z? And that's what we are. So I'll end with our mantra. Our mission, our passion is to do everything we can do every day to help financial professionals, insurance agents, CPAs, EAs get one step closer to a perfect practice. We have tools and systems in our cloud to solve problems for marketing, for closing ratios, for navigating the new social medias, for staying compliant, and much, much more. We can help you become a tax ninja. So we hope you appreciated the time. I'm going to open it up to questions and answers. But for those of you who have got to go, because I took it right out to the hour that I promised I would, how do you get a hold of us? It's right here at the top of our screen. 1-888-942-6923. I'll say that one time more. 1-888-942-6923. Give us a call. We'll do a demo, take you into the cloud. We'll show you what we do in more detail. And for those of you who don't have a pen, 1-888-WE-TAX-PREP. The easy phone number version, 1-888-WE-TAX-PREP. So call us, and we'd have to tell you more. So Q&A. I see Dave's jumped in here with a question, wants to know how much is this? We're an annual subscription-based company. We charge $29.95 a year if you want to finance over 12 months, or $24.95 if you want to pay a one-time payment. So a couple $100 a month if you pay the lowest fee, $250 a month if you want to finance, but $2,500 a year is the end cash price for joining our little club in the cloud. And again, we don't ask for your contracts. We're not an FMO, we're not an IMO, we're not a BG, we're not a BD, we're not an RIA. We're independent. You stay where you stay, and just come and learn and play with us in the cloud to become a tax ninja and get better at what you do. Appreciate the question, David. Rob's jumped in here. If I specialize in physicians, do you have practice account expertise for doctors? Absolutely. A matter of fact, we've been featured in magazines just recently, as much as maybe a week and a half ago. I was featured in the Private Practice Millionaire, one of the advisors that's nationally known very much for going after the doctor's end of the space. So we've got a lot of specialty tax what-if planning that's in and around the medical practice physicians of different sorts. So I'd say in there, we're not just an A, we're an A+ in what we can help you do for sure, Bob. And certainly the income shifting is good, you know, have college funding practice, so yeah, I agree. Janice has jumped in here. What's the email for the slides? Well, you can call us, but if you'd like to email us, it's customercare@ucloudps.com. So I'll put up our contact page here. And if I click on the right thing, there we go. There's our contact information. So marketing@ucloudps.com, info@ucloudps.com, or customercare@ucloudps.com. And we're happy to send you those slides, and hopefully we can get you to join our little village of tax ninjas sometime. David, have a team which can eliminate Fed and state taxes for small business owners with 11 or more employees not related by blood or marriage. Are you guys insurance licensed as well? No, we're not an FMO, not an IMO, not a BD, not in that industry at all, but certainly if you have a tool that you think might fit our process well, we're always willing to talk to you about how that would look. So give us a call and we'll have an enterprise conversation. You know, there's a ton of stuff that we didn't talk about today that's in the cloud, but we've got relationships with ADP, Paychex, BizEquity. There's about 13 different marketing methodologies here in our system. So teaching you about tax planning was just today's mission. But if you spend some time on our website, United Cloud Partner Services, you're going to find that we're a complete solution. Marketing, compliance, everything around the DOL, as well as how to close more business and be more savvy because of being a tax ninja. So appreciate that question very much. And somebody that didn't put in their name, so they're coming across as HTML5 viewer user. I like that. It's almost a good tag. So is a part of tax prep back office or advisor marketing assistance. Yes, all of this stuff is all part of this membership. So when you join us at the cloud, you're getting tax prep back office, you're getting Map Cloud, and you're getting CPA Tax Bank all in the one membership at the one annual price. So you're getting 3 great tools, 3 great customer care departments, 3 different missions, but all very helpful to different people in your practice. And all you've got to do is, I'm trying to log in here, is join us and come talk to us, check out what we do. And so give us a buzz, 1-888-942-6923, or email us at customercare@ucloudps.com. And we'd love to tell you more. David's come in with a question. Is this individual memberships or do you have company memberships? Well, certainly we don't charge by user, so we have people in here that have RIAs. They have 10 or 12 juniors in their office or partners, and they all have access to the one cloud at the one price. So the education, the tools, they're in here, and it's network by network. It's not advisor by advisor. There may be reasons why you'd want to have more than one membership because it's the privacy of the data that you're storing in the cloud that comes with the membership. So if you have 5 people in your office all under one membership, it's just that those 5 people are going to be able to see each other's clients' files if you're storing things here in the cloud. So certainly we have lots of those arrangements, but it's just all about the compliance and the security of the data that you store in the cloud and whether you want one person to have a view or not. So great questions, boys and girls. I really appreciate especially hanging out past the time that we asked for. And so really, really thank you very much. Again, I'll hang out and answer questions all day. I love what we do, and our community is a really great place to foster your career, take it to that next step. But if you got to go, I understand. Just write the number down, 1-888-942-6923 or 1-888-WE-TAX-PREP. Give us a buzz sometime. We'll set up a demo. We'll talk more. Or go to our website, www.ucloudps.com. You can also, of course, visit us on Twitter, and we're regular contributors on Twitter, LinkedIn. We have a YouTube channel. There's lots and lots of places where United Cloud Partner Services is communicating to the advisor world, and so you can check us out, and maybe we're a good fit. So I don't see any more questions popping into the queue. I'll give a countdown of going, going, gone. Anyone else? All right. Well, geez, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Hope you decide that our community is the right place for you. But, you know, you could always join and learn here in the cloud. And so we invite you to. And we'll phase out with the cars. See you next time, we hope.